All right. You hit continue. Good, good. Well, I'm Dave Holt. I'm a co-founder of SureVestor along with my partner, Kevin Knight, and we've got some real special guests with us today. And one of the reasons we created SureVestor was to bring value and help our property management colleagues. And Kevin and I have been doing this for combined over 70 years of property management experience. And one of the things that we have learned is that to be successful in property management, you have to do it with and through very, very good vendors. And we've got a couple of those vendors, or one of our vendors today, and with Mike and Dylan, and Kevin will be introducing them in just a moment. So really what we're about is to help you through our vendors increase the profit in your companies, reduce the risk, or maybe even simply just make it easier for you and less stressful in property management. So Kevin, why don't you do the honors and introduce Mike and Dylan?
All right, I will, Dave. Thanks. So as Dave said, I'm Kevin Knight, and I've been doing property management for a little over 38 years. And I'm really not sure how I came across you, Mike. I came across your book, this first one. And this one was called Make It Ring. And it just totally blew me away. I mean, I love this book so much. I must have got 30 or 40 copies from you. And I was passing this out to all my property management friends because I considered this an absolute must read if you're a property manager. And I think you're going to help them get a copy of the first book. I mean, we're actually here to talk about your new book, but so this is Mike and Dylan. They have Geek Marketing, and they are a professional management lead generation company. They've generated over 70,000 management leads. I know they generate a lot of my leads here in San Antonio and a lot of Dave's in Minneapolis. But the big topic today is closing these leads and getting that conversion. And so you guys have been working on your new book. You guys are definitely experts in this area. So Mike, Dylan, who's going to take this over?
Well, I'm going to start by saying thank you to both you guys and to SureVestor. SureVestor is in the book. I'm going to leave it as kind of an Easter egg. Somebody's going to have to hunt it down and find out where it's at. But in the part where I'll give a hint, the part where we talk about reducing risk and creating good offers, I think there's a spot, a good spot for SureVestor there. So anyway, thank you guys for giving us the ability to share the book.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
So Dylan, you want to go ahead and go to our first slide? Let's just get rolling. This is the title of our book, should be out next month. You'll get a chance to actually read most of the chapters for free by the end of the webinar here, if you haven't already. And it's about what we learned by secret shopping 3,000 US property management companies, 200 US cities. We sent out 11,000 quote requests, and we'll tell you kind of how we got there next. Kevin already talked about it, about the book we wrote. We also own Geek Real Estate Marketing, and we do pay-per lead property management, lead generation in the United States. Overview, Dylan, you want to just touch on these things?
Yeah, so we're looking to provide some value today. We can't cover our whole book, it's a long book, but we're just looking to kind of get at some of the highlights and start to both address some of the problems we uncovered in the secret shopping research.
Yeah. Dylan, before you really get into it, I just want to say, guys, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A. So as they're talking, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A, and at the end, then we'll go through these questions.
Definitely. I mean, on that, we would love to spend time answering questions today because you can get the information in the book, right? I mean, we'll kind of try and highlight it, give you a high level, but any questions we can answer today would be great to kind of go through that. But so today, what we hope to accomplish is give you some kind of just some food for thought, some of the things that we found at a high level in our research. And it's by no means comprehensive of all the things we found, but get a little taster and some things that you might be able to do to address those issues. And like already been mentioned, we're going to let you get a copy of the new book. It's almost completed, and our old book, as well as a chance to get a physical copy when that's done and ready to come out.
Yeah, one thing I just want to quickly highlight is we are not going to give you definitive solutions, not because we're lazy or we're trying to keep secrets, but because to actually test solutions to some of these things takes a lot of time. I mean, it could take us a year, and it's very hard because property management lead generation is a small volume sort of a thing, all in local markets. And so to get anything that is actual signal and not just noise takes a long time. And so we have a lot of ideas. So what you're going to get from us is, hey, if we were going to test something, this seems like the most likely place that we'd start. We think this is a good place to spend your time, but we're not guaranteeing that our ideas are 100% going to be the best or work, because honestly, in life, that's not how it works. You have to try a lot of things and see if it works. Go ahead and next slide, Sam. I'll talk about, I guess, how it started. We got a phone call from one of our clients, and they said, after pleasantries, told us, hey, so about those leads, used to close at a really good rate, now aren't closing at such a good rate, and we kind of like to know what's up, which is never the phone call that you're hoping to get. And so we then dug into the data. And Dylan, why don't you just tell how that process worked?
Yeah, well, we were trying to figure out like a little bit about their process. So what we ended up doing is we ended up just setting up a small scale secret shopping of this customer salesperson. And what we realized is that Mike, how about you go into exactly what we found out? Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, no, I do.
Yeah.
I remember exactly that conversation. So we set up a 2 or 3 month secret shop of that particular BDM, because we realized if we told them, they might be on their best behavior. We wanted them to be on their normal behavior to see what was going on. So that went on for a while. And what we came back with was a real simple issue. And I'll make it concise here. This BDM was responsible for referrals and for call ours, cold or slightly warm leads. And of course, referrals are easier to close, and the volume of referrals that this particular company picked up. So they obviously gave all their first attention to referrals, and that kept them pretty busy. And so they, instead of calling the leads back, they started sending an email out that said, hey, would you like to get on the phone? That was one simple process change that they made, which led their results to go from 15 to 20% close rates down to 7 or 8, just that one small thing. So we, again, didn't tell the BDM. The owner appreciated the feedback, went and changed some of the incentive structures. So the BDM felt responsible to also close not just the referrals, but the others, switched some things around internally. And then we continued to secret shop the process for another 3 months after that, just to double check and see if we actually identified the issue. And the close rate was up over 20%. To 20% close rate. So it was more than double actually where they were with that one small change. All of life should be that simple. Not everything is that simple, but in that particular situation. So that led Dylan to a question, which was what, Dylan?
Well, I mean, that's interesting to know. I mean, people come to us for leads, and the next thing that we always end up talking to people about is, okay, well, we're not closing them, or how can we close more? And that's something that we're heavily invested in. We're like, well, that just taught us something, right? So how can we scale up that knowledge? How can we, that did a thing that taught us something. How can we learn more and help more people? So we said, okay, if 1 is good, 3,000 is better. And we set up this big project to like secret shop the industry. And so we did that for a few months, sending out multiple quote requests to each company to get kind of a sense of, is there variance by time of day? Was it just an off day for them where they were slow that day because they had an appointment or whatever, and try and get some of that outlier data out of there and try and just get to the truth. So we looked at, we got a bunch of data, and then we had to analyze it and look at it. We looked at qualitative, so things like reading emails. We read a lot of just the emails that people sent us and try and figure out, okay, where's the disconnect here? And then we looked at some of just like the hard data of how long did it take them to respond, and all that kind of thing.
We also used, we looked at, we didn't actually take anything on the phone. We measured response rate if they called, but we didn't want to engage and kind of muck up the works of property management companies. So we just were measuring whether they used text, whether they used email, whether they used the phone at all. and then they would have got a voicemail message sort of thing, because we didn't want to create a problem anywhere. So you'll see some of that quantitative data also, although frankly, some of the more interesting stuff was the qualitative stuff where we actually read the content of the emails, the subject lines, how many times people followed up, how many different modes did they use, all those sorts of things we got information on. Dylan, you want to move to the next slide?
Yep.
So we're gonna dive right in. You're not going to see these headings in the book, so you're getting kind of a custom SureVestor presentation here. So the first big problem we saw, and we're titling "You're Missing Each Other." This maybe is real obvious to everybody, but it definitely jumped out to us that you are closed when the prospect really wants to talk, and when they want to talk, when you want to talk with them, the prospect's at work. So this is 60% of leads come in after hours based on our data, which means that after 5 o'clock and until 8 o'clock the next morning and over weekends, you're getting usually about 60% of your leads. That is when the prospect wants to talk because they're not at work. 80%, 85% of people work and actually go to work still, even with the pandemic and all that change. We looked at that data as well. And so that's when they have energy, that's when they have time. The problem is that's when all the property management companies are closed down and go home. And so that creates a fundamental problem. You can see the obvious problem. It creates also a difficulty in terms of following up in 5 minutes, which most people on this call have heard before. That data has been around the property management industry for a while, that fast follow-up makes a difference. Dylan, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we came to is the reason that fast follow-up is important is you are engaging with someone when you know they want to engage, right? So this is, we kind of put these under the same umbrella of they're missing each other because really someone sits down at a computer or pulls out their phone to do a thing at a particular time. A lot of times because people are work during the day, that's after a glass of wine, watching TV at night or whatever. And so how can you engage with them in the time frame that they're engaged, right? So during the workday, right, if someone is calling you on their lunch break or get a break in between appointments or meetings, they might have a very small window at which they're available to talk, right? You might miss them if you're not quick to follow up, and then that whole process becomes more complicated. So that 5-minute follow-up is like, they're sitting at the computer, they do a thing, and they're still there actively working on that project, right? So you want to get back to them as quickly as possible. Now, one thing that we often see is people will try and fix this problem with autoresponders, right? So they request a quote on your site, and boom, you have a computer send an email right away to them. This ends up solving the problem of like they have an email in their inbox within 5 minutes, but we think that the real issue is not like how quickly you get them a thing, but how quickly you get them a thing that moves them forward in the process. Mike, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah,
more?
sure. So if I'm sitting there filling out a quote request, what I want to do is I want to feel like I'm making progress. I've got it. I mean, nobody is dreaming of getting a property management quote. It's like the dentist, right? They want to solve a specific problem. They force themselves to sit down. They know they need to get this done. And so they do that. And so now I'm focused on solving this problem. And normally what ends up happening is I'm told to wait. I fill out a quote and then somebody's going to get back to me. And the data tells us that the average is somewhere between, during the work hours, roughly 2 hours is best case, not 5 minutes. The average is 2 hours-ish. And if it's after hours, it's 17 to 51 hours. So for example, you fill out a quote request on Saturday and your time off, you're probably not going to hear back until Monday or Tuesday. Well, that is not what they were hoping for when they filled that quote. They're feeling like they're in limbo. They didn't get anything that they wanted. And so the autoresponder is a nice idea, but for the most part, I mean, even if you can get them to pay attention to it, which honestly, a lot of emails don't get read. There's a whole section in the book talking about how difficult it is to get people to actually read and engage with emails. But even if you do, they're not looking for an email. They're not looking like, oh, you're alive. I mean, I'm not saying that's terrible. It's just not really what they're looking for. They want to get more information about solving their problem, especially since almost half, 45% of the people are still trying to figure out if property management is even what they want. Now, most property managers assume that they're contacting you because they've already decided. Now you just need to explain their pricing or whatever. Our data says that that's 55% of the people, which is a lot, but 45% of the people are saying, I don't know if I want to do this or not. And so they're in a way different spot in the funnel. And so they could be educated, finding their own information or whatever. And what you're telling them is your only option is to talk to a salesperson, which we'll get to that in a little bit, which they're not fond of. And you're going to have to wait to talk to that salesperson. Well, that's not really what anybody is excited about. So Dylan, next slide.
Yeah.
Solutions we test. So 5-second response is better than 5-minute response. And every time you fill out a form, which is where most of these leads are going to come from, especially during after hours, there's what's called the thank you page. You click submit and you go someplace. And normally what people see is, thank you, we received your request. Somebody will get back to you quickly. That's pretty much what it always says. We think that's a huge wasted opportunity. That can be a landing page for the information that they're wanting at that point. They are eager. They're in front of their computer. The kids are down, whatever. They're paying attention. And there's some pretty basic topics they want information on. They're very curious about pricing. And there's a whole series of things we talk about in the book that we've done exit surveys. I mean, we've done tens of thousands of exit surveys on our leads to ask people what topics they're interested in. And we talk about that in the book. So I'm sorry?
The way we like to think about the thank you page is another salesperson, right? And so how can you take at least part of that conversation that salesperson might be having with the prospect and taking that out of their brain and putting it onto that part of the process for them, right? They're moving forward along their knowledge with your company, their interactions with your company, their trust of your company, beyond filling out the form.
Yeah, I mean, in the book, we call it 24/7 online sales, because what you're wanting to do, in our view, is to test ways to get people to engage when your salespeople aren't available, to move the sales process forward kind of in a self-service manner. We're not saying that salespeople aren't necessary. We're not actually asking for any fundamental change to the process that way. We're talking about adding this in to give customers what they really want, which is more information. They want to learn about you, all these. I mean, we talk about various things we think they want to know about in the book. So that's the first thing, to use the thank you page as a way to engage with people. The next part we test, what we're calling the perfect sales presentation. One of the challenges in this business is when you get somebody on the phone, which is very difficult to do, it's not always perfect circumstances. People are wiggly. They take the conversation all over the place. And so you didn't get a chance to touch on things. They can be distracted. You can get distracted. You might be in a car trying to answer questions. And so the opportunity to really talk about all the points, like if you could just stand in front of somebody and give your perfect sales presentation, those opportunities are very rare in our experience. And so this format gives you a chance to put all those ideas, and maybe not every single idea. I mean, you still want to talk to them specifically about the exact pricing for their home. We're not suggesting that you give them an automated quote here, but the entire process, videos, information, so they can kind of work through it, and you can kind of give your perfect sales presentation. And we actually do have some evidence that this works, because this is exactly what we've done at Geek over the years. We started first by selling our services over the phone, and that was a nightmare. It worked, but it took a long time because we were explaining very complex concepts over the phone. Then we moved to a slide-based presentation, kind of the early Zoom-ish sorts of things. The problem was they're getting everybody to show up, and people would have to bail out because they were busy, and we had technical issues and sound issues. And so finally, we just took our entire funnel and put it online. And once we knew people were at a certain stage, we sent them, and it has videos and text and whatnot as people go through it. And it's not even, it's not a perfect sales funnel, but it really has worked gangbusters. Because now my phone calls when I'm talking to new clients is all about questions that they have. And we're into kind of really nitty gritty issues. They've had a chance to think through the issues ahead of time. And now they know, because that's another problem with the sales process as it is. About half the people are newbies. They don't understand the business at all. And so consequently, their questions are very fundamental. They're not even sure they're the right spot. They're on the level of, do you actually collect rent? I mean, that's where their brain is at. And so they're intimidated to talk to a salesperson because they feel at a serious disadvantage. They don't know what they think they should. So they feel a little embarrassed and kind of skeptical. I mean, that's one of the reasons that people hang up on you when you call and they fill out a long form, is that they feel, oh my gosh, I don't know what to say. And they just panic. So this gives them a chance to even the playing field, to get their information and feel like, okay, now I understand what this is about. And I do think property management is for me. So when they talk to the BDM, they've actually got some very specific concrete questions. We think it'll reduce the length of phone calls, make them meatier, get people ready to close more. So those are two things that we would test to help them missing each other. Dylan, you want to move to the next slide?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you go ahead and talk about this one, son?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have that experience of we're in the middle of the day, we get a phone call, we don't know who it's from, we hit ignore, and maybe we listen to the voicemail. And the problem is when that's the
Hey, son, tell your story. Tell your story about renting a house.
What story?
When you just rented a house, you had this experience yourself personally. Do you remember that?
No, I don't. I don't know what story you're talking about.
I
will
will
tell my story, apparently.
Because it's your story, but I'm going to tell it. This is how it goes. So Dylan was recently renting a house here in Seattle. And so he filled out some requests for showing sorts of things with various property management companies. And then when it came time, so he did it on a Sunday, and then on Monday, he was busy at work. And so the emails started coming in, the phone calls started coming in from numbers he didn't recognize. Am I refreshing your memory?
Yeah, I mean, this is just like whenever I'm always reminded of this whenever I go search for a service, right? And all these places request a quote, and you request a bunch of quotes, and then you typically do that in the evening or the weekend, and then you get ready for random calls, and half the time you pick up because you're like, I asked a bunch of people to call me, and then it's some robocall or something like that, and so then you stop answering, and yeah. So
same thing with the emails. You're at work. It's not time to respond to the emails. So,
so the way we looked at the data of like, okay, we saw, okay, how are property management companies responding to us when we do the secret shopper project? And we found that barely anyone uses text, many use the phone, and a lot of people use email. But even the way that they use email is trying to get people on the phone. And so it's all very phone centric. And I don't know about you guys, but I mean, maybe I'm a millennial, maybe that's part of it, right? But I'm not a big phone person anymore. And I think we've seen this even in our leads. We get a lot of leads coming in. We ask for phone and stuff like that. And people say they'll try and fill out a fake phone number, or they'll say, I want to talk over email. I don't want to talk over phone. They'll explicitly call that out, right? I think we're seeing maybe for people that have been in the industry for a while, might be used to it being a certain way where people are more used to phone calling, but it's shifting further and further away from that. So we look.
I want to tell a quick story just because of my real estate background. So I've been in the real estate industry for 30 years, and I spent a lot of time as a broker listing and selling homes. And when I'm so old that it was a photocopy book. There was nothing on the internet, and they just dropped off photocopy books at our office once a week, and that's how we found what the listings were. And people had to go through us, and we would go preview, and brokers opens were a real thing where you actually got to see the inside of the house. That's the only way you could see it. And then you would do a showing on the weekend. They'd get in your car and you drive them around. That's how I started my real estate career for the first X number of years. And then at some point, when the internet showed up, all that changed. And it kind of freaked me out, to be honest with you, because I was used to having control over all the information. I wasn't a huge fan of it initially, but after a while, what started happening is consumers started getting information about real estate as fast as I did. And it changed the game because they would come to you having done a lot of their own research. And now they're ready to just talk about specific homes. They could, a lot of times I found they knew more about the home in the neighborhood than I knew. And I had to rush to kind of keep up. That, in the end, everybody was happier with that change. And what we're seeing here is maybe something that's similar to that, in that property management is used to selling a certain way. It's not that it's bad, it's just the consumer expectations are changing. We point out here, we talk about asynchronous communication, which means texting and phone calling. In other words, I can contact you.
Texting and emailing. Texting and emailing.
Excuse me.
Yep.
I can email or text you, and then you can respond whenever you want. It doesn't have to be synchronous like a phone call you have to pick up. And people are, I mean, the younger people, I mean, they're completely comfortable with this, and the older people are getting more comfortable. So it's going to have an impact on close rates and follow-up. You want to talk about the don't force prospects point?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that became clear to us is, okay, so someone goes to a site and there's a phone number there typically, and there's a form there typically. And so if people call, right, they're telling you something. They're telling you, I want to talk on the phone, right? And so that typically gets answered in the sense of like, they want a thing and that gets matched, right? So they call and someone picks up on the other end and then they're talking on the phone. They wanted that and that's what's happening. What's happening with email though is a lot of the time someone is emailing, like filling out a form, and then the management company is pushing people to get on the phone. And there's a mismatch there in terms of how those people want to communicate. If someone wanted to talk on the phone, they would have picked up the phone and called people, right? And so that might be that person, for whatever reason, has life circumstances like that prevent them from having that synchronous communication of being on the phone, a meeting heavy job, whatever might prevent them. They might not like talking on the phone, right? There's a lot of data that we talk about in the book of just like reasons why people don't want to talk on the phone. Or it might be that they don't want to talk on the phone with you yet. And you have to do steps to get them to that point, right? So responding to them and saying, when are you free to talk on the phone, doesn't answer that concern, right? They need to move to another level of trust with you before they want to get on a Zoom call or on the phone with you and go through your discovery presentation, right? And so we're not anti that stuff, but it's a mismatch in terms of what the consumer is telling you they want versus what we're giving them as an industry.
Yeah, and I mean, if this point really tweaks some people in the audience, I get it. I mean, I've been selling my whole life, and the gold standard's always been get somebody on the phone. If they won't get on the phone, they're not serious. I'm not sure that that's exactly true anymore. And I think what you're going to find is you have to do a better job of adding value in different ways to people so they want to talk to you on the phone. They're not eager to talk on the phone. I mean, we outline that in the book, the data. It is their least 8% of people want to talk on the phone. Okay. And we're not saying you shouldn't call people. In fact, these numbers here where it says 10% text, 43 phone, 69 email, it should be 100% across the board in our view. You should 100% of the time contact the prospect using text and phone and email. So we're not saying not do that. We're just suggesting that people are very focused. We can tell through reading all the emails that we get in follow-up that all they care about is getting on the phone. And the other problem with that is, besides the fact that it's not syncing up with how the person wants, it turns people off also. It feels very pushy. And people are very sensitive to that sort of thing. And we're not saying you're never going to be successful by pushing for a phone call. That's not what we're going to say. I'm sure people are.
Well,
go ahead.
The reason why we do 100, 100, 100 is people are different, right? Some people want to talk on the phone. Some people never want to talk on the phone. So this is about like increasing surface area possibility, right? If you only use the phone or you only use email, and that's not how someone wants to interact with you, or that's not their preferred mode of communication, and you're not giving people options or respecting the options they're choosing, then like you're missing out on possibility there.
Yeah, the data says that when consumers are asked the question, how would you like to be followed up within a sales process? Texting wins the day by far. And I realize that may set off bells like, oh my God, we're going to get sued for a violation of texting laws and whatnot. I will say this, you're under the same risk with phone calling and emailing, by the way. The penalties are just as large. And so you have to be thoughtful about it. I would agree with that. You can't just, nobody wants text spam any more than they want phone or email spam. But the reality is the consumer likes text, and it has the additional benefit. We talk about this in the book. It's 98% read. Emails are read 15 to 20% of the time. 50% of phone calls that you receive from people you know, catch that distinction. You know it. It's in your context. People send a voicemail, don't pick up on. Over 80% of phone calls that come in from strange numbers, people ignore. And so texting is a mode that people are very interested in, maybe not 15 years ago, but now they really are. And there's a thoughtful maybe way to approach it, but it's a huge missed opportunity when you see that only 10% of property management companies are even using it. And yet it's the preferred way by most consumers. They like it. So Dylan, you want to go to the next slide?
Yeah.
I think we already kind of heavily hinted towards solutions we test. Obviously don't stop short. Use all the different methods. We talk in the book about how to mix those up and not make people feel like they're getting rained on with all the different methods and like you're killing them with spam. Let's talk about text as an icebreaker just a little bit. What we mean by that is we know people are going to read texts. They've just responded to you. And we talk about how, what you might say in it, but the general idea would be this. I fill out a quote form and I get a text from the company saying, hi, this is Mike from Liberty Management and received your quote. And I just want to let you know that I'll be calling you in 10 minutes. If you want to respond to this text, fine. Again, I'm not giving a prescriptive idea of what it should say. The point though is I know it's going to get read, number one. It also gives people a heads up that the phone call is coming. If they don't want a phone call, they can just text me back and say, hey, that was not a good time. You can also let them know there's also an email waiting for you in your inbox, because a lot of people don't check email very often. And even when they do, if your subject line is not good, 8 out of 10 of those are going to get deleted. That's just what the data says. Go ahead.
I do this with my friends sometimes. I send them an email and I know they're not going to answer. So I text them, hey, check your email, right? I mean, yeah. It's just the way if that's the way that people check their phones more often than they do email. And they also, if you call someone, you don't have information. Like if it's a number I don't know if it's a spam or not, right? The text, you can add additional information. It's to their phone, which they have with them all day, but you can say, this is from the place that you want to interact with, right? This is Mike from Liberty Management, right? It's not just a blank page of what I'm getting when I answer the phone.
The other benefit, honestly, in terms of engaging longer term, it's there. People, when you text somebody, they can go back and scroll through in a way that they may lose an email. They always have that phone with them. So, Dylan, next slide.
All right, first question break here, or maybe the last question break. We've talked a lot about on this stuff. We'll see. Is there any questions?
Well, we got two. One's not marketing related, and one is. I'm gonna tackle the first one first. So, got a question. They see that I have a certified property management logo under my company name, and so both Dave and I have certified property management companies, and we're both members of the National Association of Residential Property Managers. And I would encourage everybody to be a member of their local chapter, because you'll get a lot of education through NARPM, is what we call it for short. And so they actually have a process where you can become a master property manager. And then once you're a master property manager, to be certified, you actually go through a full audit. They actually come to your office, they audit everything. And that's how you earn the certified management logo. So I encourage all property managers to attend their local NARPM meetings if there's one in their area. And so the first question we have, they understand that Geek uses AdWords, and they're asking, have you tried implementing AdSense for potential clients who visit your site?
Yeah, and I'll answer this one. I think I get what they're asking. AdSense and AdWords are different, right? I mean, again, if you can clarify the question if this is not what you're asking, but AdSense is a way of putting ads on your site that, like a place for ads to show on your site that if someone clicks on them, like you get a little bit of money, right? Now, I don't know why.
On a little.
Yeah, I don't know why you would do that as a property management company. I feel like that sort of situation would break trust to put ads for other things on your site. I feel like you want them there to be about your site and not leaving to whatever ads might show up there, because you don't have a lot of control over what shows up there. So
Dylan, I think what they're talking about is more like the social media. Like you could put the little Facebook ad thing on your website, and if they come to your website, then wherever they go on Facebook, okay, so Liberty Management, do
remarketing then.
Yeah, I think it's more like the remarketing.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to do. We do some of this with people that come to our lead gen sites. I think it's a great idea for people to do for their own sites. Now, the issue is,
Dylan, would you clarify and just explain just in a thumbnail for those people who don't know what marketing is?
Yeah, so you put a piece of computer code on your website, and what it does, it says, okay, this person's been to my site. So when they go elsewhere, like they go, let's say they log on to Facebook, you can tell Facebook, hey, this person has been to my site and I want to show an ad to people that are on that list of people that have been to my site, right? So you're only paying for people that you know have been to your website.
Yeah.
Now, I would say that you want to be thoughtful about how you implement this, because you have a lot of people coming to your site. A lot of them are going to be current customers or renters. And that's not well spent money, because those people are either your customers or you're not trying to advertise to get more renters on Facebook. And so that's just clicks that you don't need to pay for to people on Facebook. And frankly, they probably won't click, and it will just hurt your results.
Yeah, probably what you want to do, we don't need to go into a whole retargeting course here, but you probably want to pick a page on your site that obviously is an owner page, pricing or something like that, and retarget people like that. There's also audience minimums, and it gets to be really complex really fast, but that's not a terrible idea. It just takes a little bit of muscle to implement.
Well, so I'm going to add a little bit to this. So Jesse's bringing up like LinkedIn Insight Tags, Google Tracker, and it's the Facebook Pixel. And I played with it a little bit, and I have a lot of friends that have tried, generating leads off of Facebook and stuff. It just they weren't getting their return. I mean, it may be something in the future or as things get better to go down that route. But it seems like the biggest bang for the buck has been the Google AdWords by 10 times. It's not even close. So everyone I know that's really invested a lot of time and effort, yes, you could generate some stuff and you could build relationships, and then when they think of somebody, but just to generate the people that are actively looking for property management, the Facebook ad seems to do the best. And while we're waiting for questions, I do want to say, since I've had a chance to go through the chapters that are out, there is a lot of data on how people want to interact, and there's a lot of data on what us as property managers are doing wrong. It's like, I just can't wait to okay, let me get through this so I could get to the good stuff to figure out what things do I need to be changing to fix it. And what really gets me is part of it, society, the marketplace keeps changing. The stuff that I was doing, 10 years ago, hey, this was rock solid. And I generate a lot of leads, so I'm fortunate. But the biggest thing is, you want to close, you want to increase your closing ratio. If you could double your closing ratio, now you're going to make, for the same spend, you're going to make a lot more money. And that's what your book is really going to help property managers do, is increase closing those leads and communicating in a better way. And it's not just for leads. I got with my director of operations, and I'm like, okay, Jonathan, you got to read this, because how do our owners, when our current owners are contacting us, or in our current tenants, if they send an email, they probably want to be emailed. They don't want the phone call. Or if they send that text, then, they want to communicate by text. So do the format that they're choosing, or give them I think one of the things you had in your book, give them the option. It's like, how would you like us to respond back to you? Would you prefer an email, text, or phone call? Just let them pick. It's like, now you're giving them the kind of service they want to have. So, I mean, the book's dynamite, and I don't know, no more questions have come in yet. So guys, if you have questions, feel
Let's
free.
move along then.
Okay, yeah,
Keep going.
next point here. All right, great
Kevin,
segue here.
you kind of teed this one up for us,
Teed it up,
actually.
yeah.
Thank you.
We're going on long on time, so I wasn't sure how much more.
I mean, yeah,
let's keep
when
going.
we have to be, what's our cutoff, Kevin, here? We can talk for too long, so.
Well, we're probably past it.
Past
but,
it.
Okay, all right, well, we can shut up then.
So they want to hear it.
It's all in the book. If we can skip to the last slide with the information to get the book, if that's what you guys want to do here.
Well, if they have the book, they'll be able to read this for themselves.
Definitely, yeah, this is just us.
That's all the
highlighting
data,
stuff in the book.
everything's in your book.
Yes,
And so I'm going to say one of the biggest things, though, once they read the book and they even see the solutions, are they free to reach out to you guys for assistance, or?
Yeah.
sure, yeah, we want to dialogue with people about this.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, and by the way, it's not just, do you want to buy leads from us? We're happy to just talk because, honestly, we just want to learn. I mean, if we sell people leads and they don't close, here's what happens. People stop buying leads. So we like it when people close leads. It's very important to us. So we want to learn all we can about it. That's part of it.
We don't think that like we have it figured out here, right? We're just trying to be as helpful as we can with the available data that we have, right? So we want to hear from people that are trying it or have questions that are in a different position than us, right? We're coming at it from the marketing end. You guys, property management companies, are going to come at it from operations or owning the company end, right? So we want to hear from people like that.
Yeah. So guys, could we do this? Could we jump to your contact information, how they get the book, all of that? And then what we could do for those who want to stay, you could go back to the presentation and continue on. And then those who came expecting that it was going to be a half hour and got the information that they needed, and those who want to continue on can continue on with us. How's that?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. So here, the headline is send an email to me. That's my email address, mike@geekrealestatemarketing.com. Just put SureVestor offer in the subject line, and then we'll give you everything you need, which will include a PDF version of our older book, Make It Ring, a PDF version, access to the new book. And then once the book is finally published, we'll give you a chance to get a free Kindle version. And we'll even show you a way you can get the hard copy version for free as well once the book's actually on Amazon.
And then to answer Brian's question, yes, we'll send everybody here a recording of this. So
awesome. Cool. So go back to the slide up above, the next part up here.
Yeah, I guess.
All right.
Is that what you want us to do, guys?
yeah.
Okay, great. We're down to stay as long as you guys want us to.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Well, then we have it recorded too, so those who have to jump off can listen.
Sure.
Yeah,
great.
that sounds great.
Okay.
So Kevin kind of gave us an intro into this. The broad category is you've got systems set up in your business to make the process work right, which is good. You should have those systems. You need them. However, some of those systems are working against you or could use some tweaking. So for example, I would say the majority, not the minority, but the majority of property management companies that we surveyed have the first interaction with the prospect is a recorded voice tree. And I understand why people do it. And we talk about all the complexities that are related to that, before anybody gets upset at me for saying, Mike, you have to do it that way. I mean, I get it. But the problem is nobody in the history of the world wants to call someplace, you or anybody else, and get a voice tree. That is not what people are shooting for. And so the closer you can get to what people are expecting and hoping for, the more you'll differentiate yourself from your competitors. Because what people are used to now is they call in during work hours and after work hours. They're going to get a voice tree. They're going to bounce through. And that starts to boil up all that voice tree rage that people have stored from talking to their phone company and their utility company and everything, they start to get frustrated. So that's one problem, is that people are experiencing that, and it makes them go in their brain, oh, here we go again. I'm in a voice tree. There's no human being to take care of me. I'll skip into the final one. People also, believe it or not, there's data out there that says that people are sending unsolicited text to your main office phone number. So think about that for a second. You've got a main phone number. Most of them are not text enabled, and people wanting to interact with you are texting you. It's happening. I guarantee every person on this call has had this happen. How would you know though? The problem with all these situations here, you don't know how many people are bailing on you because there's no metrics for it. How many people did you lose last weekend by having every lead go to a voicemail? Well, I can tell you, we take thousands of calls in and we listen to a sampling of them. Well over 50% of the people, as soon as they know it's a recorded message after hours, they hang up. The data says that a percentage of those people are owner leads.
Well, and here's another thing that ends up happening, right? When you get that phone tree, you're going to get sent to, a voicemail, like Mike said, right? And so one of the things that can happen is, even if, like, let's say a human being takes that first part of the call and then sends the call along to the BDM, salesperson, whatever, and they're not there, and the person gets the voicemail for them, right? What we see is that's as good as just having a voice tree, right? On one level, because then they're like, well, I didn't get to talk to someone about the thing that I wanted to talk to them about. And there's no system set up to allow the property manager to call them back or whatever, right? So,
I'll interrupt there. Some companies do what seems like a common sense thing, which is the person who picks up the phone initially, they'll have a live person, an answering service, whatever. They get their actual information before they transfer, but a good percentage of them don't.
Yeah, that's what I'm pointing out. I think that's what you should be doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what you end up, as soon as somebody gets transferred and they realize they're leaving a voicemail, about half of them just like, boop, they're gone. The front desk would never know that. The salesperson would never know that. That is just money you are bleeding. It's just invisibly going away, and the owner would never know. The problem with all these things we're raising here is you would never know. It's not like they're going to come screaming into your office and say, I tried to call this weekend and you didn't pick up, so I went away. You don't have that situation. So this is an invisible suck on your profitability in our view. Dylan, you want to go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Solutions, pretty simple. So we won't go into too much detail here. We think you should test having your calls answered live 24/7. And I know it costs money. That's why people don't do it. But we run through the math in the book, and we think that it's going to be a profit center for you, not a money loser. The number of people you're going to get just based on the data we have. Could it vary by company? Sure, it could. But
one thing, Mike, it's going to differentiate, it's going to separate them from their competition.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm here to tell you that if you went out and you called 1,000 property management companies nationwide, almost every single time you're going to get a voice tree during hours, after hours. And so you're almost shocked when a live person answers. I mean, it's like, oh, gosh, I was thinking I was going to get routed everywhere. Yeah. And that is a very nice first experience for somebody to have, and very much sets, we're going to talk about trust here in a second. If you want to turn the trust equation around, get more human with people, act like a human being, treat them well. And one of the things that somebody calling wants is they want to talk to a person. They don't want to talk to a robot, which is what an answering phone tree and message machines are. And I'm not hating on those things, but I'm just saying, wow, you can really differentiate yourself that way. The other is pretty obvious.
I want to interject a point, Dan, before I forget here. Of one of the things not mentioned on this slide, but I think is super worthwhile is, like Mike said, like this stuff is invisible to you unless you go in with consumer eyes through your own process, right? Put on your, I'm a person looking for property management goggles, and try and go through your sales process with that frame of mind and see, where would I be annoyed, right? I'm going to call the company, right? Or have someone that you know that wouldn't be recognized, right? I mean, maybe your employees would probably recognize you, but you could get one of your friends or somebody to call in, you could listen in to the recording or something like that. But getting those fresh eyes on what is this process actually like for people right now? Because as business owners, we get disconnected. We're just like, okay, we set that up a while ago. It's probably fine. I'm worrying about all the other fires on my plate, but it's just good to get in the gears and be like, how would a person go through this for the first time, right?
Well, one of the things that we saw, I mean, this is kind of in the area of unforced errors, which is why Dylan's idea, we do talk about it in the book, is to kind of secret shop yourself, hire somebody off Upwork for $10 an hour and have them go through your system and try to pick it apart and be brutally honest with you. Like, I don't understand what you're saying here. I tried to call that number and nobody picked up. This web page doesn't work. I mean, we found that over and over again that people, you click the submit button and it goes nowhere. That's not a good thing. And it's easy to, and I'm not saying people are bad or they intend this. I'm just saying life happens. Yeah. You've got to double check your stuff to make sure it's actually working and that it's giving the consumer the experience that they're looking for. And, you know, ideally have that person be not on the inside because they develop a certain industry blindness to things. Because the average person you're going to talk to, half of them don't know anything about property management. And so you want that kind of unscripted, unexperienced reaction to your systems. They should feel easy and they should feel common sense oriented. So next slide, Sam.
All right.
This is a huge one. We actually devote two chapters in the book to one to irrelevance, one to trust. I'm using a more popular term, spammy. But a lot of reason that you're not getting the close rates that you want, and you're not getting people on the phone, and you're getting people to ignore or unsubscribe from your emails, it's not because they know you. They don't know you at all. They do it before they even know you. They look at what you're doing, makes them feel like you fit in a category of people that they're used to dealing with, which are either irrelevant to solving their problems or down, and the next tier on that spectrum is you're spammy. You're like, you know, I don't want you. I mean, if you want to know why you get fake phone numbers or fake emails on your form, it's because people are concerned about quote unquote being spammed with your follow-up. Now, a lot of that, I'm not like blaming property management companies for this. This is a mindset. People are paranoid about this sort of thing before they even get to your door. I'm just saying that as a matter of mindset, you have to be prepared to kind of view your prospect huddled in a corner, afraid of communication until they trust you. And not everybody's that way, of course, but a decent number of people are pretty skittish about things. And you see all kinds of weird behaviors in the process. You have something to say, Dylan?
We talked about earlier with phone calls where it's like, the assumption is that your phone call is spam until proven otherwise. At least that's how I feel. I don't know. I think a lot of people feel that way. Or at least a 50-50 chance, right?
Well, so the data actually supports that. The data says that by this year, 50% of incoming phone calls are spam calls because it's gotten crazy with automated stuff. And so people aren't nuts. I mean, it's real.
And so you in email, same way, right? Unless you are like being explicitly clear, like one of the things that we saw over and over again, for example, is people get, you have a form and it emails you and it's like form fill confirmation, like that's what it tells you. And then people reply to that, right? A salesperson will just like reply to that email. And so what goes to the prospect is RE, like it's a reply to form fill confirmation. And that's the headline to the prospect. Why would you open that? Right?
Well, like to further complicate it, the average person gets 113 or more emails a day. The average person doesn't clean their email out. So by the end of the week, they may have 500 emails. It's entirely possible. And the way that people deal with their inbox, besides just ignoring it, is they go through, and the data supports this. They click the all button. They unclick the ones that that look like they're a live one, a real person that they know, and they hit delete for everything else. Away it goes. And if your subject line looks like something that they can't remember or doesn't stand out as solving a problem of theirs, you can bet it's going to get deleted. Only about 20% of real estate emails get opened? Think about that. I mean, maybe yours is higher than that, but if you want to know why people aren't opening your emails, it could be that they've already deleted them, or they're ignoring them. And it's not, again, we're not saying you're terrible people. We're just saying you're playing in a tough environment because people are used to getting spam and they're overwhelmed with communication. And so they're going to be tough about some of this stuff.
And so one thing that I'll say is, I mean, we as humans, we respond to specificity and personalization, right? Okay, this thing looks like it's really going to address my problem. And one thing we saw over and over again, and I get why people get here, is that they have one email for everything, right? I mean, this is partly an autoresponder problem where you try and write one email that answers every question for every possible concern that might come in. Now, the problem is that feels specific to no one and feels irrelevant to people, where it's like, we'll often have people like, you know, they want a quote and what they get is, here's everything except that, right? To prospects, because or there's not even an acknowledgement of a specific question that someone asked in the email, in their form response of like, do you do this thing? And it's like, maybe you could find that somewhere in the like bullet point of 20 services you've listed here, but it's not like, doesn't feel to me like you're answering the thing that I want.
Well, specifically, people are filling out quote forms. And I mean, I don't have this off the top of my head, but I bet 50% of the responses that we received had nothing to do with the quote. I mean, didn't even mention it. They just, hi, here's our company. We're a great company. We'll get back to you. Can we get you on the phone? I mean, a million different things, right? If this is a maintenance request, please call another number. It's like, seriously? I mean, I'm not even sure I'm in the right spot. And those are unforced errors. I mean, if you just sit and think through your process, I think anybody that cares could do a better job than that. And we're not assuming that property management companies don't care. We're just saying, this is what we saw. And it can just, this would be a really simple fix. Don't you want to go to the next slide?
Yeah.
You want to talk about this?
Yeah. So, I mean, we think we already touched on it a little bit, but whenever possible, personalize your emails. We don't think that a one size fits all approach works, right? I mean, we get that there's operational realities in terms of, okay, well, you want it fast, you want it personalized. And on one level, we're saying, yeah, try and figure out a way to make that happen. We detail some ways in the book to use automation to achieve this in a way that tries to balance the two of personalized, but also easy to implement and automated to some degree. But you're going to get a better response if people feel like you are addressing the things that they care about, and that this isn't some stock email sent to them, but really is this person on the other end trying to make a connection with them and answer and help them, right? This is a service question, right? Now, like, we don't expect this to be something, we're not trying to get you to go out and write this long one-off treatise every time to someone, but there's a balance there, a way to leverage a thing that you know works and then have a piece of it personalized that is the leverage point that makes people feel like, okay, because you did this piece, I feel talked to personally.
Yeah,
right?
And that's the great differentiator. I mean, if you want to know how you're going to increase your close rates, I was going to give you one sentence. It would be more human. It's the great differentiator. People feel dehumanized in the entire online world. And so if you can find a way, like a simple thing in the email, if you just responded and say, I mean, this is a more extreme situation, but it does work. You put the person's phone number in there. Bob, is this the best number to reach you at? I guarantee you that email is going to get read. Why? Because it feels really personal. Now, there's some risks there, but say you put in the subject line, Bob, your home on 123 Main Street, does it or does it not have a pool? Or something like that, that says, this is actually relevant to me. I mean, they're talking to me specifically. I'd go next level. Also with the second point, personalized email, bomb's not the only option. There's Youre and some other free options. But if I owned a property management company, it would be mandatory for my salespeople and BDM to use video, personalized video interacting with customers. And one of the reasons why is it separates you out and you're a human being. So now my competitors are all using text. It's two-dimensional. I'm using video, which is two-dimensional, but it looks three-dimensional. At the same time, I'm also using all those things you can use in a personal presentation, the thing I'm not going to get over the telephone, to explain or to show the kind of person I am, that I'm a human being and that I'm nice, and all those things that build trust, that give the people feeling like, I kind of like those people, the people that sent the video, because I will tell you right now, almost nobody does this. It was in the single digits, low single digits of anybody that used any kind of video. And the videos that were used in terms of follow-up were canned corporate stuff, which we will tell you not to waste your time with. It needs to be personal. So it needs to be sales BDM holds up, hey, Bob, I've got a question for you, in his little thumbnail that shows up in the email. We know some people that are doing this sort of thing, and anecdotally, they're saying the response rates are going up dramatically because of that, because it's like catnip. If your name's in a video, it looks like a personalized video, you're going to watch that video. You are. That's just how human beings are. It's way too thought.
Well, it takes the idea of, I mean, we all kind of intuitively know when people say, like, if I get them on the phone, I have a better shot, right? Like that's something that I feel like our industry feels. And the reason is that it's more personal, right? Like if I can just kind of like get to know them, use some charm, like be a nice person, then it's going to increase the chances that we're going to move forward with this situation, right? Now, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to give you probably a 60-second warning because we're doubled our time.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I'll just finish my thought.
Leaving it on the video thing is super powerful. Yeah. I would like to see you guys maybe throw your contact information up there. And I'm going to put in the chat for the people that are still here. If you guys like getting this kind of information, June 24th, we're having another fantastic vendor. I'm going to put the link in the chat. If you want to sign up for that, that's going to be awesome. But you're definitely going to want to take some time to email Mike and Dylan and get copies of both books. I mean, both books are really powerful and they're just full of great ideas. I mean, Dave will tell you that just the other day I was sending video chats, video messages right off my iPhone, and I just, actually I just go right to who I want to send it to, put it in the chat and record the video and hit send, and it's gone. It's like, and I was getting some responses just like that, because they see you, you got the engagement. You have a lot more ideas in this book. I can't wait for that final chapter, by the way, guys. And we need to talk, because I know you're putting us on the right path to convert more leads, which is what we want to do.
Well, thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys.
Righty. Great, thanks again. And we'll be sending everybody a recording of this. So if your questions weren't answered, you've got Mike's email, just email Mike directly and he can answer any questions that you may have.
Yep.
So thank you all again, and stay tuned for our next one. Good.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Mike, Dylan. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll be talking soon.
Okay, sounds great.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, guys.